Deborah. I'm coming to you from Canberra, Australia, and this is a channel I started to help me with my unfinished projects problem. I'm going to have a bit of a clean up on my trestle tables. I want to start quilting the African quilt. I want to hand quilt it. It's a bit too, where it needs quilting is a bit too complicated to do on the machine, on a domestic machine. It probably could be done freehand on a big machine, but I don't have one, so I'm going to take some zen time over the next month or two and hand quilt it. And I'm probably going to hand quilt a lot of the steampunk quilt as well, because I want to follow the shape of the gears, and I don't want to try and do that under a domestic machine either, because they're both huge quilts. They possibly wouldn't even fit under some of the long arm quilting machines out there. I have the fabric for my Italian quilt. That's a heap of different colours of grunge. I was cutting them out down here. I've made about 300 blocks and they're too big. I put them up on the design board, they're too big. So I'm going to have to either cut them down or just adjust the seams. I think probably I'll adjust the seams because I want to keep the middle in proportion to the outside bit. So what I'll probably end up doing is taking them apart and resewing like 1 centimetre seams instead of 4mm seams. So that's about 1/2 centimetre. The 4 millimeters is about 1/4 inch, and the centimetre is close enough to 1/2 inch. So I'll just adjust those seams rather than recutting all the blocks. I think that's going to be easiest. And take into account that when I'm trying to reproduce the effect from a quilt that has 3-inch finished blocks in it, it's not going to look the same with 4-inch finished blocks. Duh. I have just over there the coppery colour. That is the fabric for the steampunk jacket, which I will cut out in order to get that off this table, because I'm pretty much up to that now, so that can be cut out. I'm working on a scarf, which it's unfortunately in the colours of our local rugby league team. So I didn't realise that when I picked them out. I just thought they're nice. And somebody pointed out to me, oh, you're a Canberra Raiders fan. I don't really follow rugby league. I just like the colours and I like them together. I'm up to a row that I've made a mistake in, and so that needs to be unpicked, and then I can get going again. This is a bag that I made. I think it's in an early video, but that's where I'm keeping my wool. So I have like this left. So once that's pretty close to used up, that's when I'll stop. It's not really long enough yet. It's quite wide. It's almost a shawl. And it's a pattern, a lacy pattern. And so it's really quite important, if I make a mistake, to go back and unpick it and do it properly, because it is noticeable. So I will just pack that back in its bag. And this one is on my UFO bingo card. So I like to actually work on it in front of the television, except on the lace rows I can't have the telly on. So it's a work in progress, and it's a slow work in progress, but one that I want to finish. So I will just pop that in there, put that back in its spot. I've been collecting selvages for a friend. She wants to do a selvage quilt. It's not something that appeals to me, so I've been using keeping the selvages from all these gorgeously coloured grunge fabrics. So that will be nice for her. We'll get on with cutting out the steampunk jacket. I probably don't need to do that on film. I'm sure you've been bored to death by the cutting out of the skirt. So just same thing, different shape, fat pattern pieces. And I will catch you later when I've got the quilt laid out. I actually have pinned it, but there's a big bubble, or pretty much in the middle of it. And it's a large queen size quilt, and I really couldn't be bothered to until now to go back and fix those bubbles so that I could start quilting. But I will fix that. I'm just working on the back of the African quilt sandwich. As you can see, there's quite a decent amount of rippling there. I have gone along, there's quite a bit there too. I've gone along about a quarter of the quilt at one end, and I've flattened out the back. I'm just finishing off that now. I'm going to pin that, and I'm pinning it on the back. I'm going to turn it over on the front and make sure that it is nice and flat. And then I will quilt that bit, and then I will repin the next quarter and do things that way. So I spent some time repinning part of this quilt a couple of days ago. No, yesterday. It was actually only yesterday. And it's still not great, but I've been stitching. Oh, I've done some stitching. Most of it's on black, so it's really hard to see. Have a look on the back. Trying to keep it all fairly even. I'm using a Sashiko thread, which is quite thick, actually. Where is the thread I was going to use? Oh, it's over there. So it's quite thick, and it's not really properly stranded to let me pull it apart. So I'm just cutting a piece long enough to go all the way across the quilt. It's about 2.6 meters. I don't know what that is in yards. Probably close to 3. And it does get a little bit tangled, and it's only just occurred to me that I could be using Thread Heaven like I did on the Chook quilt when I was hand quilting that. So I've had a bit of a search for that. I was watching Adam Savage from Mythbusters fame on his Tested YouTube channel a while ago, and somebody asked him, how do you organize things in your workroom? And he said the best way to put things away is to put them in the place where you first thought to look for them, which I think is actually quite clever. Unfortunately, the first 3 places I thought to look for the Thread Heaven were not where it was. And then when I did find it, it was in fact the most logical place for it to be. It was with my cross-stitching supplies, which is where I found it in the first place and where it's been living for 15 years. But it wasn't the place that I looked for it. So anyway, I found it. I can get that going now. It's just a tiny bit challenging getting this thread through the eye of the needle. I've got lovely long Sashiko needles, but this particular one, the longer ones don't have big eyes. It took me all afternoon yesterday to do repin about 1/8 of the quilt and do 4 rows of quilting. So I'm not having to do this process very much. I'm doing fairly big stitches. 1, because it's just making it go quicker. 2, because It looks more like a Kawandi kind of stitching, which from my research, which wasn't terribly extensive, seems to have gone to India from Africa. African, I'm not sure if they were immigrants or whether they were slaves, but it came from India from Africa by the sounds of it, and this fabric is pretending to be African too. It's mostly made in America, but with African designs, but I love it. So we won't get into all of that politics. So Thread Heaven, very long, and a knot in the end. So I'm just starting over here just before the edge, doing one stitch, pulling it through so that the knot stops it, and then starting very close to the edge with the first stitch. Even after repinning the quilt, I'm still not completely happy with the smoothness of the fabric on it, so I have been just smoothing out this top as I go. So it's fine here. Over here I'm going to have to be able to take out some pins. Oh, you can't see that? Over here, I don't know whether you can see the bubbles. I'm going to have to take out some pins as I go along. So I've only drawn the line for as far as I'm happy that it's flat, and then I will take out a couple of pins as I get closer to actually stitching it down, and so through that, and sit here, stitch for a few hours, get almost nowhere, question all my life choices. I actually decided to do this by hand because I didn't want quilting stitches on these blocks, but as I was going through, once I got to the blocks, I thought, well, it has to go through the blocks to be held together properly. So I could possibly have attempted this by machine, but I'm actually spending a lot of time trying to keep everything smooth, and I don't think I could have done that as well if I were doing this on a sewing machine. So I'm basically trying to just get this nice rock, but my table is not smooth. It's a trestle table. It has a bit of texture. I find if I put a cutting mat underneath it, the needle goes into that rather than just gliding over the top. So I'm doing like I did with my chook quilt, and I'm just picking it up. I'm smoothing it off, picking it up, and just doing probably 3 or 4 3 stitches usually, up and down 6 times, and trying to get them smooth, trying to get them right to the same length, and just progressing that way. It's not fast. It was never going to be a fast process. I'm not overly bothered. I'm just sort of pottering along, doing this at my own pace, and in between doing other things. So that's what I'm up to downstairs.